It's so hard to do things when all you want to do is read. Summer's for reading. Like, why isn't this a national thing? Why isn't this a global thing? Why isn't this a universal thing? Bust out some reading. Whoever reads the most, they get a raise at the end of the year. I would win that game. Yeah, I would. But I haven't finished a book because I'm reading an 1,100 page book. Guess what book I'm reading? Whoever guesses right, you can have a raise. I don't understand what a beach read is. Get what you're saying. You're reading a book while you're at the beach. But what makes that book that you're reading at the beach different from a book that you read any other day? I'm reading a book, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to put this down because today I'm going to the beach, so gotta like set this aside. But I'm like, oh, I'm reading this book, I'm going to the beach, prime reading time. The argument that like, oh, well, it's distracting, it's hot, there are dogs everywhere, that person's boob just popped out of their shirt, and whoa, those tan lines, blinding. I get distracted by things at my house. Or is it the excuse to read at the beach because it's somehow socially unacceptable to read? Or is it your excuse to read crappy books that you know are crappy? It's okay to read crappy books. You're reading. Just read them. Don't say, oh, it's just a beach read, because you don't want to come up to the fact that you're reading something super formulaic. You're reading. Good for you. Don't call it a beach read. Just say, I'm reading a book at the beach. I threw my pen. I was so aggressive. Now that I've done that, here are some books that I read over the summer that I would read at the beach, that you can read at the beach, or you can read them at your house, or in your doctor's office, or at work under the desk when you're supposed to be doing work but you don't want to. Huh. One of the best written books I've ever read, The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. And it's set in the 40s during World War II, and it's about these two cousins, Joe and Sam, who are both Jewish. They become really successful comic book artists at a really young age. So it seems big. It's not, because once you get into it, you just get lost in it and you don't want it to end. Also, the font they use is really pretty. Couldn't Keep It to Myself by Wally Lamb and the Women of the York Correctional Institution. Wally Lamb actually writes very little in it. He writes the foreword, but the rest of the book is their stories. And they're not really talking about their crimes specifically, but they're talking about their lives and the situations that put them in positions where they committed crimes. A wonderful insight into the minds of people that our society deems as unworthy or deviant. If you struggle with being empathetic, this is a book for you to pick up because it's a wonderful window into the lives of people that you may not interact with otherwise. Always a good classic that everyone calls a beach read. James Patterson. Man writes formula after formula after formula. You know what? The Women's Murder Club, I really liked this series. I only read up to like the 7th one, but I remember when I started reading them back in like middle school or whatever, I got so into them that I made my mom like run around to find the other books, and she had to go to all kinds of grocery stores because regular bookstores weren't carrying these books. That should tell you something. If you're finding your book at a grocery store, that should be a red flag. Beach read. They're quick, they are formulaic as hell, but they are fun, and I've always enjoyed James Patterson. I'm gonna cop to that. Wonderful Tonight by Patty Boyd. Any of you who are the fans of the song Layla by Eric Clapton, meet Layla. Is the sister of Jenny Boyd, who was / maybe is married to Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac. So it's kind of like this really excellent insight to some of music's greatest artists. The life of this woman who somehow managed to be in the lives of two of music's most amazing contributors. And she didn't sing, she didn't play music, but hell, the woman made a mark. She is the muse for two of the most wonderful love songs of all time. And then there were none. Agatha Christie, classic. I was like, I'm a good reader. I can figure out who did it. Pfft, this is so silly. And then I got to the end and I was like, nope, didn't see that coming. There's not much you can say about Agatha Christie, Ari, because she said it all herself. And if you're feeling like, you know what, I've been reading too many beach books, I really should be more engaged and intellectual and blah, 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 blah. If you want to read something academic, Quidditch Through the Ages. It took me about 30 minutes, and you know what? I learned a lot. So, cut the crap with this beach read nonsense. Pick up a hefty book, pick up a small book, pick up a book that you find at Shaw's or Market Basket, pick up a book that you find on a dusty shelf, and go read. Also, I don't want to give y'all a raise, so I'm going to give you the answer. The 1,100 page book I'm reading is, of course, the third Game of Thrones.